When people imagine Viking warmth, they picture roaring hearths and smoke-filled longhouses. What almost no one talks about is what happened when the fire died down, or when fuel was scarce, or when storms made constant burning impossible. Vikings lived in some of the coldest inhabited regions on Earth, yet archaeological evidence shows their homes stayed livable even without continuous fire. That wasn't luck, and it wasn't brute force heating. It was a floor design so effective that it quietly regulated temperature using insulation, biology, and thermal mass. Once you understand it, it becomes clear why modern homes still struggle to replicate this kind of passive warmth. This wasn't about luxury, it was survival engineering refined over generations. Why Vikings focused on ground insulation instead of chasing constant heat. Viking builders understood something fundamental. Cold doesn't just come from the air, it rises from the ground. Heat loss through the floor can drain warmth faster than walls or roofs, especially in cold, damp soil. Instead of fighting cold air endlessly with fire, Vikings cut it off at the source. They treated the floor as a thermal barrier, not a walking surface. The goal wasn't comfort under bare feet, it was preventing the earth from stealing body heat from the living space. How layered organic floors created insulation modern materials still struggle to match. The Viking floor wasn't bare dirt, it was a deliberately layered system. Archaeological finds show floors built from compacted clay, sand, ash, straw, moss, animal hair, and sometimes manure. This sounds crude until you understand how it worked. Each layer trapped air. Air is the real insulator. The compressed organic materials slowed heat transfer from the room into the ground. Clay added mass, stabilizing temperature. Ash reduced moisture and discouraged pests. The result was a dry, insulated base that stayed warmer than exposed earth. Once compacted and maintained, these floors behaved like a living thermal buffer. Why biological activity inside the floor mattered more than most people realize. Here's the part modern builders rarely consider. Organic floors generate low-level heat naturally. Decomposition releases warmth. Microbial activity inside compacted organic layers produces small but constant heat output. This wasn't a compost pile, but it wasn't inert either. Over time, the floor itself became slightly warm, not hot, not smoky, but enough to raise the baseline temperature of the room. In cold climates, even a few degrees makes a massive difference in survival. This biological heat worked day and night without fuel. How Viking floors regulated moisture and prevented cold dampness. Cold becomes deadly when it's damp. Viking floors managed moisture intelligently. Clay layers blocked groundwater. Ash absorbed and neutralized moisture. Organic fibers wicked dampness away from the surface. Dry floors feel warmer even at lower temperatures. By keeping moisture under control, Vikings prevented the chilling effect that makes modern concrete floors feel freezing in winter. This moisture control also protected wooden walls and posts from rot, extending the life of the structure. Why this system worked even when fires were minimal or absent. Viking homes still had hearths, but they weren't always burning. At night, during storms, or when fuel was limited, the insulated floor slowed heat loss so effectively that indoor temperatures dropped gradually instead of crashing. Body heat, cooking heat, and residual warmth from earlier fires lingered longer. The house itself held warmth rather than bleeding it into the ground. This passive retention is what made the system so powerful. So, here's the thing. Modern homes have kind of lost this age-old knowledge, and now they've become dependent on constant heating. Modern floors are, well, they're thin, rigid, and actually pretty thermally aggressive. Concrete slabs, for example, conduct cold directly into our living spaces. And, raised floors often just let cold air circulate underneath without any real checks. Instead of insulating the ground connection, most modern homes rely on mechanical heating to make up the difference. But, when the power fails or fuel runs out, indoor temperatures just plummet really fast. Viking homes, on the other hand, degraded slowly, which bought people time and honestly a bit of safety. So, how can you apply Viking floor principles today in practical ways? Well, you don't need to rebuild a longhouse just to use this knowledge. The first step is to address ground contact. If you have a concrete floor, try adding insulating layers above it. Thick rugs, cork, wool, or even layered natural fiber mats can really help reduce conductive heat loss. In off-grid or cabin settings, earthen floors can be improved using clay sand straw and ash mixtures compacted properly. Even adding insulating fill beneath wooden floors dramatically reduces cold seepage. Focus on moisture control first. Dry floors retain warmth better than damp ones. Use breathable materials that manage humidity instead of trapping it. Why survivalists and off-grid builders should pay close attention. This system requires no electricity, no moving parts, and no constant fuel input. It works silently and continuously. In long-term survival scenarios, that matters more than peak performance. The Viking floor didn't fail catastrophically. It didn't shut off. It didn't rely on supply chains. It simply did its job every day. What this forgotten floor teaches us about real resilience. The Viking floor hack reminds us that warmth doesn't always come from adding energy. Sometimes it comes from preventing loss. By understanding heat flow, moisture, and materials, Viking builders created homes that worked with nature instead of fighting it. Modern technology hasn't replaced this wisdom, it's mostly ignored it. If this deep dive into Viking survival engineering added value to your understanding of historical living and resilience, make sure to subscribe for more serious, research-driven content like this. Share this video with anyone interested in ancient technology, preparedness, and lessons that still matter today.